I'm Karen McCarthy, and it's time to Karen-ize. Today's Wednesday when we talk about spiritual health, and today I want to talk about stress. It's a great topic because I was pretty stressed out before I started this video. I am, as I said before, I am not a professional when it comes to making videos or working with cameras or anything like that, and trying to find a way to use our camera instead of my iPhone to take the black edging off of pictures has been challenging. I think we might need a different lens for the camera because the screen is so tight that I can do okay for this, but when I'm trying to do crafts, it's just impossible. I mean, the tiniest little thing that I'm trying to show won't show up because the screen is so limited. So anyway, bear with me. I may still be using my iPhone for the crafting days until I can figure this out. So stress. Yeah, how do we handle stress? When I do it on my own, I don't do a very good job. Not a good job at all. Before I retired, I had a position where I had a lot of responsibilities, tons of responsibilities, the kinds of responsibilities that were out of my comfort zone, but it was a ministry or a mission that God had given me, and so I stepped into it even though I was not qualified. And He did help me, but I kind of lost my focus as the program, it was a youth center, and as the program grew, it was a nonprofit, so I had to do lots of fundraising and grants and things like that. And as those responsibilities grew, I was so focused on that I forgot the things that would have helped me be more effective. For instance, my goal was to come every day and just spend a few minutes in prayer, maybe some Bible reading, especially if I hadn't done devotions at home that day. I always do some online readings that I have, but those are not the meat of my walk with God. It's spending time in the Word that really helps. So anyway, if I hadn't done that, that was my goal. Come and start the day, hem the day in with prayer, and go from there. The other thing, and I knew this was really, sorry, I'm scraping on something. The other thing that I really needed to do that would have helped counteract the stress on my body and my emotions was to periodically take breaks from the paperwork and the phone calls and all of that kind of stuff and do something active. Walk around the building, go for a short walk outside, even just get up and do some squats or jumping jacks or something to get my blood flowing, I guess. I didn't do any of that. Excuse me, my computer just went off. So as the years went by, I got more and more and more stressed, to the point where I look back and I think of the tiny little things in my life that were like insurmountable stresses, and I needed to vent to whoever I could vent to. One of my workers, who was like my right hand, she got most of it. And even though she vented to me about some things in her life, I know that I probably overwhelmed her with the amount of things I needed to vent about, just constantly. I always thought of myself as a positive person, and I don't think I was a positive person at that point because so many things were just driving me batty and I needed to vent. And instead of venting to God, I needed someone that I could look at and could verbalize back to me, even if it was just a, oh, huh. At least I thought I needed that. So that's how I was handling stress, and it was not effective. The stress was getting worse. The things that began to bother me were more and more trivial. Talk about making mountains out of molehills. That's what I was doing. So by the time I retired, I had my physical, emotional, and spiritual health was in the toilet, so to speak. In fact, my doctor said, I don't even know how you're functioning. And I really wasn't. I mean, things that used to would have been very easy were very challenging. I had to expend more and more energy to just try to get the basic things done, and so I was exhausting myself. So there's a little bit of that kind of background. I don't know if you're like that at all, but I had to learn to break those habits because even when I retired, I was in that mindset of busy, 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 busy. And I think that started back when I was a kid. I couldn't relax until all my chores were done, and I had a lot of chores. And so I was trained by my mom, bless her heart, to not relax until everything was done. Well, in life, very seldom is everything done. I mean, even in retirement, there are things that I could do rather than sit and relax. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow or next week. But I needed to learn to lean on God. And I needed to learn to let go of that busyness when it was not serving me well, and not serving the program well, not serving my relationships well. So here's what I learned about how to handle stress God's way. God says to lean on Him. In John 14:27, Jesus says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you." He gives us that peace. We just have to reach out and grab it. "I do not give you as the world gives you." The world does not give us peace. I don't know if you can hear all that. We have some windstorms going, and I don't know what it's knocking over on our back deck. But anyway, He says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." I don't know that I guess it was a fear of sorts. Fear that I wasn't going to raise enough money. Fear that I wasn't going to be able to pay people. Fear that I wasn't going to be able to find good workers. That kind of stuff. I mean, it was fear. I hadn't thought of it that way until right now. In Psalm 94:19, I love this, and I like looking at different versions, different translations. So I've got two different ones with this one. They sometimes give you just a little more insight. In the NIV, it says, when anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me joy. Isn't that great? When anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me joy. Had I leaned into Him, I would have had more joy. The New American Standard says, gotta scroll it up, when my anxious thoughts multiply, and that definitely was going on with me. I hate it when you get pop-ups. Come on. I've got this little thing popped up, and it's not going away. There we go. Nope, there it came back again. And it's right over the verse. When my anxious thoughts multiply within me, your comfort delights my soul. When my anxious thoughts multiply within me. That definitely sounds like stress. Your comfort delights my soul. That's what we need to lean into. Philippians 4:6-7, you probably know this one. It says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus." So if we lean into Him, the stress doesn't go away, but it's like our reaction to it changes. It totally alters. And if we give it to Him more and more and more, we get better at that. You know, it's like building muscle. We've got to build our faith muscle. If we lean into Him before we do anything else, especially during stressful times, we will develop that ability to have that peace and joy even in the midst of trials. So, stop leaning on people, stop leaning on things. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't vent to people. It's just, if I had done that in a healthy way, it would have been about major issues, not the trivial little things. And it wouldn't have been consuming every conversation. I mean, I always thought of myself as a positive person, but I definitely wasn't then. I was having to vent so much of the time. I'm sure people were like, "Oh, here she comes." I don't want to be like that. Had I relied on a thing such as exercise to help combat the stresses of sitting at the computer all day or on the phone and that kind of thing, it would have helped too. But first and foremost, we need to lean on God and then use those other things as support rather than our crutches. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that that helps you. And just remember, first and foremost, lean into Him. And He will give us that peace in the midst of anything that's going on. Have a great one.